Okay, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the Southern Center for Human Rights annual Justice Taking Root celebration and benefit. We're so excited to have you all here. We're going to have a really terrific program tonight. My name is Maureen Del Duca, and I'm the chair of the board of directors for the Southern Center. I'm very, very honored and privileged to be able to do. Tonight, we're celebrating, among other things, the 40th anniversary of the Southern Center, and it's very exciting. And it's very fitting that we are honoring Bobby Lee Cook with the Center's Lifetime Achievement Award. We're thriving because of you, and we're really grateful for everything you're doing to support us. And before we get started, I just want to honor tonight's sponsors. They're scrolling on our list here, and you've got them outside. Our anniversary sponsors, Cook and Connolly, Kilpatrick, Townsend, and Stockton. Our benefactor, the Daily Report, Defenders, Maisie Lynn and P. Troy Causey, Garland, Samuel, and Lowe, King and Spalding, and Morgan and Morgan. Our guardians, Joe Loughlin, Ann and Martin Manuel, the William Joseph Foundation, Georgia State University College of Law, Malloy Jenkins Parker. And the full list is, as I said, in your programs and on the boards here. Thank you all. We have many dignitaries here with us tonight, including members, former and current, of the Georgia Supreme Court, Justices Robert Benham, Hardy Gregory, Carol Hunstein, and Lee Ward Sears. I think they'll be here tonight. Other members of the judiciary we're very honored to have with us: Judge Clarence Cooper, Judge Sharon Blackburn, Judge Dax Lopez, Henry Newark, Wendy Hsu, Christina Cook Graham, Mary McCall Cash, and Wanda Dallas. Thank you, Justice. And we have deans of Dean Stephen Kamenschein of Georgia State University College of Law, and Dean Robert Shapiro of Emory University School of Law. We also have with us our board members. Would our board members just stand and be acknowledged, please? We had a really terrific and productive board meeting this afternoon, and it was a very exciting meeting. I want to thank Joe Loughlin and King Spalding for hosting us. Thanks, Joe and King Spalding, for hosting us. And we had just a terrific presentation from members of Leadership Atlanta, class of 2016, and we are so grateful to them for contributing their time to us as an organization. I want to thank all of them. The members who are here, could you please stand and be acknowledged? Most importantly, of course, is our staff, our Southern Center staff. And they are absolutely, by far, our most important asset. And I'd love to have them stand up and be acknowledged, please. The very best part of our board meetings is the couple of hours we spend, we'll do it tomorrow morning, at the center, hearing from our staff members about the work that they do. And it's such an inspiring and profoundly moving experience. It's something that we all really look forward to, and we just have so much admiration and respect for the hard work that they do. And now I'll let the professionals take over. I want to introduce to you our MC for the evening, Monica Kaufman-Pearson. Monica is probably the most revered television journalist in Georgia, if not in all the South. She's the first woman and the first minority to anchor the daily evening news in Atlanta, where she worked 37 years at WSBT. She's one of her 33 Southern Regional and Local Emmy Awards for reporting, anchoring, and for her close-ups celebrity interview show. She's a lifelong learner, graduated master's degree magna cum laude from the University of Georgia Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication in 2014. And she currently hosts, you can hear her, on her 3-hour weekly music and talk show on Sundays on KISS 104.1 FM. She's going to be inducted into the National Association of Black Journalists Hall of Fame in August 2016. Let's welcome award-winning journalist and community champion, Monica Hoffman-Pearson.
It is an honor to be here this evening with you. It's truly a pleasure for lots of reasons. Don't you think food is great too? But I found this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that I thought was most appropriate for the evening. He wrote, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. The tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals." I think that is a fair description of the Southern Center for Human Rights and also the legendary Mr. Bobby Lee Cook. For 40 years, the Southern Center has worked to transform the criminal justice system in the Deep South. SCHR's fierce commitment to equal justice and unwavering belief that everyone deserves dignity, deserves respect, deserves compassion, that has fueled tremendous change over the past 40 years. Please turn your attention now to the screen for a very special video entitled Believe. For 40 years, we believe. Let me hear you say it. We believe. One more time.
We believe.
Now I believe that. Aristotle wrote, at his best, man is the noblest of all animals. Separated from law and justice, he is the worst. Sarah Tontonchi is SCHR's executive director. She leads the Southern Center for Human and Civil Rights with passion, fearlessness, and of course with vision. Over the last 15 years at the Southern Center, she has led coalition efforts in legislative advocacy to establish Georgia's statewide public defender system and to enact strong criminal justice reforms in a very politically hostile climate. Atlanta Magazine named Sarah one of the 5 of the future leaders of Atlanta, and she has been named a notable person for the last 5 years by Georgia Trend Magazine. Please welcome Sarah Tontonchi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight as we celebrate our 40th anniversary. Now, I appreciate Monica going over the mantra for the evening, we believe. And I would say that it wouldn't be an unwise bet to make that if you found your way to this room tonight, that you share some of the beliefs that were discussed on this video. And when it comes down to it, when you believe in the Southern Center, you are affirming that all people, everyone, deserves a fair shake and an equal opportunity in our criminal justice system. Equal justice under law is fundamental to the American justice system, yet it's a promise that continues to be unfulfilled. Every day, what the Southern Center for Human Rights sees in the courthouses and on the streets prove that instead of delivering on the promise of equal justice, the kind of justice people receive depends on the color of their skin or the amount of money that they have. Indeed, over the last 40 years, the Southern Center for Human Rights has witnessed and advocated for and documented countless acts of people being treated unfairly. And I just want to take a moment to introduce two more special people who are with us tonight, and they're our former clients. I want to introduce you to Jimmy Lynn Horton, who we're so happy to have with us tonight. And Jimmy is joined by his wonderful wife, Abby, who we all pleasure work. And I also want to introduce you to Amber Reed, right here in front, who will be hearing from more later. It is unusual for us to have our clients in our presence, and it's truly an honor. So thank you for being here. But those of you who've known our work for some time might remember some of the stories of the way that we have advocated against injustice. One story that those of you who have been with us for a while probably wouldn't forget is the story of Samuel Moore, who sat at the Crisp County Jail ordeal for the terrible crime of loitering. After 9 months in that jail, he filed a handwritten motion asking for a lawyer. 3 days later, District Attorney Denise Cheney dropped the charges against him. But Samuel Moore continued to languish in that jail for 4 more months because no one bothered to tell him, and his court-appointed lawyer never visited him. And then there was the case of Jamie Lease, who sat in Georgia jails for 5 years awaiting his death penalty trial. 2 of those years, the state provided no money for his appointed lawyers. During one of those years, he had no lawyer at all. Jamie Lease is somebody who suffers from auditory and visual hallucinations, serious depression, and severe anxiety. And the prospect of facing a death penalty trial without a lawyer left him so full of despair that he attempted suicide 3 times and repeatedly told the district attorney that he wanted to give up his chance and just take the death penalty. And then, of course, there was Wendy Whitaker, who at the age of 17 had one-time consensual oral sex with her 15-year-old classmate who was really only 13 months younger than her. She was prosecuted for this, convicted of sodomy, and then forced to be on Georgia's sex offender registry indefinitely. She suffered humiliation and public degradation. But the worst came 12 years later, when the Georgia General Assembly passed a law that would have forcibly evicted her and her husband from their longtime home because it was too close to a child care. And then just last year, we had the case of Adele Edwards, a man who's in his late 50s who has intellectual limitations and who is frankly destitute. His home in Pelham, Georgia has no running water. And he was charged with the crime of burning leaves in his yard without a permit. And when he went to court, he received a fine and fee of $1,028 and 12 months supervision under a private probation company. This private probation company insisted on a $250 down payment from Adele Edwards, and because he couldn't pay it, he left court that day in handcuffs, in a police van, and was taken straight to the county jail. As you can see from stories like Adele Edwards, even minor charges can lead to very serious consequences. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have Jamie Lease, who is literally fighting for his life. And one thing it becomes clear when you look at these. The only protection that a person has from the overreach of the criminal justice system is an effective lawyer who will put on a zealous defense. For 40 years, the Southern Center for Human Rights has been that defense. We have bridged the gap between discrimination and equality, and between unfairness and justice. For example, when Atia Holly, who at the time was a student at Dartmouth and interning with us, she's now a lawyer with us, went down to see Samuel Moore at the Crisp County Jail, he was released almost immediately. And his story didn't end there. Samuel Moore's case became part of litigation that was the center of what prompted the passage of the 2003 Indigent Defense Act and created, for the first time ever in Georgia, the public defender system. Jamie Lease, once he finally got the zealous, compassionate, well-resourced representation he was entitled to by Steve Bright, by Patrick Mulvaney, by Katie Chambly. They helped secure him a life sentence when all signs pointed to death. And for Wendy Whitaker, thanks to litigation that was brought by Sarah Garrity, Jerry Weber, and others, she got to keep her home. And what's more, she actually was removed from the sex offender registry, which she had no business being on to begin with. And finally, Adele Edwards was the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit last year challenging the predatory practices of a private probation company. And it was effective. It actually shut down this private probation company and stopped them from continuing to prey on vulnerable people like him going forward. So tonight, we are celebrating the Southern Center's 40th anniversary. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for the contributions you make to our work. You make it possible, and you keep us in the struggle to realize the promise of equal justice under law. With your generous support in the past, tonight, and going forward, you allow the Southern Center to put our beliefs into practice every day to build a better world. Thank you for believing in us and believing with us. Here's to the next 40. Cheers.
Sarah, thank you very, very much. All things, great things, are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word. Freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, and hope. Winston Churchill. Now to present the SCHR's Lifetime Achievement Award is Edward T.M. Garland, better known as just Ed Garland. He's a partner at Garland, Samuel & Lowe, PC in Atlanta. His practice area includes criminal trial practice, criminal appellate practice, personal injury, product liability, and malpractice. Ed is a former member of the SCHR's Board of Directors. He has provided pro bono counsel and worked with legal staff on a number of issues, including the indigent defense class actions. He played a major role in passing the Georgia Indigent Defense Act, and he helped to establish Georgia's Public Defender Standards Council. Used to see him a lot on TV. Please welcome, in person and living color, Mr. Ed Garland.
Good evening, everyone. In the Southern Center fabulous. It is so nice to be here and to be with all of these sparkling, brilliant people, the disciples of Stephen Bright. And Stephen, to you, my hat has always been off as one of the people I truly admire as a lawyer. And I am very fortunate to have the great honor to be able to introduce the fabulous Bobby Lee Cook, who I have been able to call my dear friend throughout my legal career, and was inspired by him before I ever became a lawyer. And it's very appropriate that on the 40th anniversary, in the theme of justice taking roots, that we are honoring Bobby Lee Cook. We are here, Bobby Lee, to recognize your lifetime of achievement as a man and as a lawyer. For 67 years, if I got the numbers right, Bobby Lee Cook has practiced law. For 67 years, his heart and soul has been rooted in the pursuit of justice, in the pursuit of fairness, in the pursuit of the idea that everybody gets a fair shake. At age 89, he is actively and forcefully representing clients on a daily basis. And everybody's hat off to him. And he is still giving great advice. And I know many times in my career, sometimes on behalf of my clients, sometimes on behalf of myself, I have gone and sought his counsel and good and great judgment. Now, he has been recognized for many years, and he has achieved for many years. And the awards he has received are too numerous for me to even list in the 5 minutes I've been allocated. But like you tell a judge, I'll just have a few questions. I'll do my best to touch on the magnificence of the career and life of Bobby Lee Cook. He's had awards across America from national and state bar associations. And among his many achievements, and the one he is the proudest of, is that out of his Scottish Cook family heritage, he has created a great and strong family. Some of them are here tonight, and I want to ask them to stand as I recognize them. Bobby Lee had 3 children, and here tonight is his daughter, Honorable Christina Cook Graham. Would you stand, please? Also, her sons and Bobby Lee's grandsons, who are attorneys, Jeffrey Conley and his wife, Angela. Would you stand? Is he here? Oh, he's standing. I see him. Mom's got to have one with her. He has been working in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. And I really question whether or not that was possible. However, whenever he leaves, normally when someone's been a prosecutor, it takes some months and perhaps years to drain the prosecution blood out. But I know the minute he gets free from that place he's in, it will leave him instantaneous. Also present is Sutton Conley. He too is an attorney, and here with his wife Susan. And he has the great joy and opportunity to practice law with Bobby Lee Cook. And Bobby Lee told me that he's making sure that he's immersed in the blood of advocacy up to his armpits. So Bobby Lee, your advocacy gene has taken root in the northwest Georgia mountains, and it will go on for generations. Not here is his daughter Sarah. He has 6 grandchildren. And I also want to remember, because she has been and was so much a part of my life as a young lawyer and the lives of many lawyers in this room who have been fortunate to be under the umbrella of the wonderful friendship of Bobby Lee, and that is his late wife, June. They were married for 66 years, and she was really his partner in all things. He has always told me that it was her support, guidance, and love that was the fire behind his drive and his achievements. And we remember her with great love, Bobby Lee. So your roots of justice, you have planted throughout our state and throughout this nation. In looking back over the many articles, and I couldn't read them all, I was struck by an in-depth story done by the Los Angeles Times on Bobby Lee, featured, of course, as the largest newspaper in America. And this was a feature story, and its headline was, "Country Boy Loves the Law and a Good Fight." And this is the way it read. He's a country gentleman. He is as smooth as corn silk, tough as a pine knot, and smarter than two foxes. In fact, he is so eloquent that he can make the term son of a bitch sound like Shakespeare. Bobby Lee Cook is and has been an inspiration to generations of lawyers in Georgia and across America. He is an inspiration to me and the many lawyers and friends that I have seen here. How many of you relished that call and said, "Hello, this is Bobby Lee, how are you doing? There's a fella I'd like you to represent. You think you could ride up here and see me? Oh yeah, he's got some money, I wouldn't be happy to call you." I see the smiles out of the audience. He not only is an inspiration to people, he is truly an inspiration to his own family. When I talked to Chris, she said, you know, he believes. He is a true believer, and he never compromises, and he never surrenders. Now, during his lifetime, he has tried more than 1,000 cases, well more probably. 300 of those cases were murder trials. He's tried cases in 40 states in America and 2 in foreign countries. He's tried plaintiff's cases, civil cases of all types, moonshiners, money launderers, car thieves, the indigent and the very, very rich. He even represented the Carnegies and the Rockefellers. He's defended the most sophisticated business crimes. He's defended politicians and lawyers, and yes, judges, doctors, religious leaders, bankers, newspaper owners, and business executives of every type. And always and now, his friends and his neighbors throughout North Georgia and in our state. He's an inspiration for his skill as a lawyer, but he's also an inspiration for his personal kindness, for his honest professionalism, and for his generous hospitality and expressions of friendship and kindness. I called up Judge Murphy, his contemporary, same age. And Bobby Lee, he didn't want to let you off light. He said, you know, Bobby Lee, when he was a young man, well, he was the best self-advertiser of any man I've ever seen. In fact, I think he's better than Donald Trump. But he did tell me that many occasions when Bobby Lee would be trying a case, and he'd make sure his law clerks came in to see. He would tell them, now Bobby Lee is going to make this witness admit he's a liar on the stand, and I want you guys to see it. And he did so many times. But Judge Murphy also said he is a kind and fine man that many people wouldn't realize that from his ferocious image of advocacy. And when I talked to his sons and asked them, tell me about your grandpa? They said, you know what amazes me is his work ethic. He's up at 5, he reads 4 newspapers to know what's going on in the world, and then starts reading the advance sheets and starts working on his cases. They are in awe, and they are most in awe of his passion for the law and for his love of what he's doing. Now, God gifted him with many talents, but it has been his relentless, his diligent, hard work that has made him such a star. Now, if you know of Bobby Lee, if you've been with Bobby Lee and his friends, you know those stories about his life are legion, and his courtroom performances are legion. And it wouldn't be right if I didn't at least try to tell one that I heard early on. I first heard who Bobby Lee was when my dad, who was a lawyer and a friend of Bobby Lee's, sent me a transcript to review when I was in my senior year in law school, where my father had gotten into the appeal in a case where Bobby Lee was making a closing argument, and the issue surrounded whether or not the brutality involved some issues where the defense could argue for mercy. And I'm reading this transcript, and I don't know anything about anything, except my dad told me to find some issue and write it up. And I'm reading along, and Bobby Lee's making the argument, and then the transcript goes, bam! And Bobby Lee says, mercy, bam! Mercy, bam! Mercy, bam! 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 Give them the same mercy that they showed. And it was as if the power of that advocacy flew off the face of the page and into mine. I later went up to file the motion for new trial in the case. Bobby Lee was gracious, greeted me, took me down the street from his office to the Superior Court judge, Bob Coker. Again, Bobby Lee, with his courtesy, introduced me. I said, I'm sorry my father can't be here, but here's the motion. I wasn't a lawyer. And the judge, well, don't worry about Rube not being in, just give him a message. That old boy's gonna ride the lightning. Fortunately, good sense and the Supreme Court set aside the death penalty, and Bobby Lee wouldn't have to make sure that that conviction was set aside. In my experience with him, he was always at the courthouse early. And on occasions, I went around to different counties with him. And he would roll up with his chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce and open the door, and plumes of smoke and fragrance would come out from his pipe. And I would have to climb in over the advance sheets scattered on the floor where his blue felt tip pen had marked them up. And we would journey off and always be there an hour early. And I talked to Bobby Lee about it, and he said, well, I just want to make sure that I see who's here and talk to folks and get a sense of it. And men in the country know how to hunker So the next thing I'd look around, and Bobby Lee would be squatted down with several of the people from the community talking in the hall of the courthouse. For he always has had the ability to walk with kings, as the poet says, but not lose the common touch. I've been practicing 2 or 3 years. I got a case in Catalona, and I went up there, and my case was continued or something. I walked out in front of the courthouse, and I'd seen a lady rather agitated in the courtroom, and she was upset, and she came walking out of the courthouse. Said, I don't have a lawyer that's worth a darn. I'm going to get me a good lawyer. Are you a lawyer? I said, yeah, I'm a lawyer. She said, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over the mountain and get me a real lawyer. I'm going to go get Bobby Lee Cook. Now, Bobby Lee is a fierce advocate, and somewhere along the way, I think he told me the phrase that, you know what you do if you see a good fight in? You go get in it. But he has a deep belief that a lawyer's word and integrity are essential to a successful law practice. His attitude is you just deal with the court straight up. If you make a mistake, you admit it. Problem is, Bobby Lee doesn't make many mistakes because of his astute judgment. In January of 2001, a group of criminal lawyers gave a dinner in Bobby Lee's honor. I think that's when his picture was hung as the first living lawyer up in the Supreme Court, but is that where they hung it? I think it was. And Doug Peters wrote a song to Bobby Lee, and I'm not going to sing it, but this is how it went. Here's to Bobby Lee, a hero to you and me. We toast him, we sing, and we shout. If it's acquittals you're counting, he's the king of the mountain. He's the master of reasonable doubt. And he has been. I can't tell you how many times he would tell me he was off to try a murder case in Miami, or a murder case in Mississippi, or a murder case in some town in Georgia. And I'd always be curious when I talked to him again. I said, what happened to that kid? Oh, they let the boy loose. They turned him loose. I heard it so many times. And his percentage of acquittals would shake any prosecutor that understood it. So Bobby Lee is still a fearless, creative, bold, vigorous, and shrewd lawyer with a great sense of humor and a great love of lawyers. So Bobby Lee, it is an honor to present to a man who believes the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Southern Center for Human Rights. Come forward, my friend. Using the King Bobby Lee, but he said he couldn't create the impression that you don't really use it like you do. At this time, on behalf of the Southern Center of Human Rights, we present you with the Lifetime Achievement Award for embodying courageous and zealous advocacy on the behalf of people facing criminal charges, and for raising the standard for criminal defense in Georgia through training and mentoring the next generation of defense attorneys. May 3rd, 2016. Ed, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the judiciary, and guests, I didn't know it was going to be like that. When I received the announcement from this center that I was going to receive the award that I was given tonight, I tell you in all candor, I was perfectly dumbfounded. I could think of hundreds of lawyers that I have known and presently know. That, in my opinion, at the time and now, would have been much more apt to have received the award than myself. Having said that, I am honored and gratified as having received it. I appreciate all of the kind remarks, many of which may have been somewhat exaggerated. But my friend Ed Golden, I've known Ed ever since he was 6 years old, and I have the deepest respect and admiration for him as an individual and for being a courageous, fearless, and brilliant advocate. Got lots of cases with Ed over the years. Ed was always, when we tried a case, he was a tactical expert. I was not the expert, but the lawyer with my background and my generation. I believe more in what we called up in the mountains, hand-to-hand combat. But we had a remarkable experience over many years for which I shall be eternally grateful. I heard Sarah tell you a little bit about what the center had done over the years and about the state of justice in this area of America. If there's anything that I know about, it's the state of justice that was here when I started practicing law in 1949. It was a very rare time in this republic. One could read the Bill of Rights as author Hugo Blackbeard, who carried a copy of the Constitution in his pocket. It gave us a plurality of rights, but in name only, as so many of those rights have no application in Georgia or Alabama, Mississippi or Tennessee, or in many other parts of the country. For instance, we had no Fourth Amendment here until 1960. Oftentimes, counsel would be appointed in a murder case on the first day, and you would be compelled to try it on the second day. There was no discovery. There was no adequate benefit of counsel. You were not given the right to prepare. The only thing that you got was a copy of an indictment and a list of the witnesses. And I have tried many of those. Interestingly enough, surprisingly even to me,
and a hell of a lot of them were success. It was the most unusual and extraordinary time. Having said that, Georgia in 1949 and until 1961 was the only state in the English-speaking country in which a defendant could not take the stand in a criminal case and testify in his own behalf. He could not be asked any questions. He could not be examined by his own lawyer. And not until 1961 that the Supreme Court in Ferguson versus the state said that that was unconstitutional. I am pleased and gratified and honored to accept this award and to have received it. What makes it even more special is that the organization that gave it to me is very special. The staff of this center, the lawyers and the staff, are highly professional people with wonderful and unusual and high credentials as it relates to their background. They have great ability, but especially they have the courage and the tenacity to do that which is necessary in order to restore human rights and dignity and constitutional rights in this area of the world. They understand for the proposition that in their watch that they will not preside over the liquidation of the Bill of Rights. They also know that lawyers, such as I see in this community tonight, understand and have the conscience to know that liberty and freedom is a noble cause which has stirred the hearts of people for generations. From the time of Cicero until the present moment. We have an obligation to support this center, for it does work which no other bar association, which no other entity is equipped to do. I thank you very much, all of my family, for coming here. I thank my favorite Justice Sunstein, and my dear friend, Hardy Gregory, a former member of the Supreme Court, and his lovely wife, Tony, all of the other members of the judiciary that I have known and admired for many years. Again, I thank you for listening to my remarks, and I wish all of you the best and Godspeed. Thank you.
Because of Bobby Cook, Bobby Lee, we believe. We believe. It is obvious in your entire career you have lived what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Thank you for your service. Now let's welcome the Southern Center staff attorney, Katie Chambly, and former Southern Center client, Amber Reed, to the stage for a very special performance. Are you ready, ladies?
Good evening. My name is Katie Chambly. I'm a staff attorney at the Southern Center for Human Rights, and it is my honor to introduce you to our client, Amber Reed. Amber grew up with 2 drug-addicted parents, and she was physically and sexually abused in her home. When her 19-year-old boyfriend found out what 15-year-old Amber had suffered, he took Amber with him to get a gun, and in his rage, he drove back to Amber's house and shot both of her parents as she stood beside him. Amber was charged with capital murder. Soon her appointed lawyer withdrew from the case, and the state did nothing to appoint another lawyer to represent her. And so Amber waited 4 years in a county jail before her trial. This is when she's starting at 15 years old. Eventually, Amber pled guilty to murder and accepted a 20 and 27-year sentence. And earlier this year, now at age 32, Amber has been released on parole because what she did while she was in prison is get a GED with straight A's, earn a cosmetology degree, earn a welding degree, and complete such a successful program that she was eventually able to impress the parole board enough to be released. And so it is my honor to introduce Amber to show us one of the other things that she did while she was in prison, which was develop a true passion for writing poetry. And so Amber is now going to share with us a little bit about her experience. Thank you.
Ooh. Y'all have no idea how nervous I am. This is untitled. Before I went to prison, I believed that I was cursed. I had no help from the system and a hard life that just got worse. Abuse and misfortune were simply the norm in my world. I endured beatings and rape as a 15-year-old girl. Though indeed she was present, we couldn't turn to our mother. We had to fend for ourselves, me and my little brother. Then I made a horrible decision, and desperation landed me in jail. But after all that I've been through, I still fought tooth and nail. With the time the courts had given me, I took in all that I could learn. I held my head up high through 16 years of my term. Self-help classes, a diploma, and even a welding degree simply weren't even enough to prove that I deserved to be free. So I sought out the aid from people at Southern Center for Human Rights, and I prayed that they would help me to continue with this fight. Without charges, without fees, or even a hint of resistance, they did all that they could to provide me with assistance. 2 more years of work, and my hopes were still undampened. But I could not believe when the impossible happened. When I heard my parole was granted, I sat in stunned disbelief. I thank God, Ms. Chambly and Southern Center for this oh sweet relief. There are many struggles behind me, and many battles are yet to come. But I face them now with smiles, because I know the war has been won.
Now that was touching. And we believe very strongly in you and all that you can accomplish. You are a strong young woman and you have a bright future in front of you. And thank you. Your story reminded all of us in this room that we are all more than the worst thing we have ever done, and that justice and mercy must go hand in hand. Thank you. Now it's time to hear from Tamara Serwer Caldas. She's pro bono partner at Kilpatrick Townsend in Stockton. They are an anniversary level sponsor of tonight's reception. Tamara leads Kilpatrick Townsend's attorneys in providing pro bono legal services to low-income clients, community groups, and to nonprofit organizations. Her commitment to justice runs very deep. Since serving as senior staff attorney at SCHR, Tamara has maintained her commitment to public service. As a result of her efforts, she has received the Rita A. Sheffy Public Interest Award from the Atlanta Bar Association and the Epic Inspiration Award, Unsung Devotion to Those Most in Need, from Emory University. She's received a lot of other awards and recognitions because of her service. Please welcome Tamara.
It's emotional to hear the stories of Bobby Lee Cook and to hear Amber Reed's poetry, and I have some prepared remarks, but excuse me if I go a little off my script because this is really meaningful for me. I worked at the Southern Center for Human Rights from 1998 to 2004, and I have to say that when people ask me about my history, that is my absolute proudest part of how I describe who I am and what I've done. These years were deeply meaningful to me for so many reasons that I think after this evening most of you can imagine. But since this is the 40th anniversary, I was thinking a little bit about history and kind of where I landed in this history. The time that I was at the Southern Center was frankly a really distressing time in the history of criminal justice in our state and in the United States. The Prison Litigation Reform Act had been enacted by Congress in 1996. The Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act the same year. In 1994, the Georgia General Assembly passed SB 440, which allowed Superior Court's exclusive jurisdiction to try and incarcerate children as young as 13 as adults and place them in the adult criminal justice system in Georgia. It was around that time that the state passed some of the most onerous mandatory minimums in the United States. Jails in Alabama and Georgia, many of which I would come to know incredibly well, were at double, triple, and quadruple their building capacity. We finally had HIV drugs that would help people potentially live indefinitely with HIV, but if you were incarcerated, you couldn't receive them. We were at the cusp of the expansion of the private prison industry, which turned incarceration into a for-profit business. That was one of the first things I remember Sarah Tatana, when she joined the Southern Center, was involved with trying to deal with the fact that when you turn a prison into a profit-making entity, the incentive is to fill it by any means necessary. It was an important job creator in rural Georgia, and yet it guaranteed that we would need to continue to incarcerate people indefinitely in order to fill those beds. And well into the 1990s, I was there in the late 90s, the entire staff made $25,000 a year. And I will tell you, standing here, I will speak only for myself, that I felt lucky to make a salary at all, to do the work that I was doing in Alabama, in Georgia. Those were simply the most meaningful years of my life as a lawyer, as a person and the friends that I made at that time are some of the most important people in my life to this day. I stood beside some of the most effective, passionate, creative, amazing lawyers and advocates that to this day I can possibly imagine. Our clients were sick, our clients were dying, some of our clients were executed. And yet together we were a community, and it just absolutely lightens my heart that this community not only still exists, but has grown and deepened and has become so much more sophisticated as lawyers and as people. Things have changed. The salaries have increased a little bit, for example, which is good. But the struggle continues, absolutely continues. I don't know of an organization that does more with fewer resources than the Southern Center. And I say that because, as you can imagine, one of my roles up here this evening is to ask you to be as generous as you can be this evening and in the future when making contributions to our legal community and especially to the Southern Center for Human Rights. So I am also deeply proud that I am now at a law firm, Kilpatrick, Townsend, and Stockton, that shares the sense that access to justice, access to fairness, representation by attorneys is fundamental to our legal system, fundamental to our society, and that we choose to contribute at a significant level, not only financially, but through Alan Garrett's representation on the board of directors and through pro bono contributions of our attorneys. I'm very pleased to be joined here tonight, not only by Alan, but by several members of our staff and among our partnership. While things have changed, what hasn't changed, and for me what's obvious this evening, is that the attorneys at the Southern Center continue to be the most passionate, effective, creative advocates you can imagine. And so much of what's changed in our state around criminal justice has the Southern Center, whether they're at the front or at the back. And what I mean by the back is that much of what has happened in our state is because of a long view, a 40-year view by visionary people about what's possible in the South and what's possible in Georgia. And they don't always take credit for it. But if you look very carefully, the Southern Center and their advocacy and their increasing place at the table when criminal justice reform is happening is a huge reason why our state, across political aisles, is moving forward and in many respects is taking the lead in criminal justice reform, re-looking at mandatory minimums, re-looking at whether incarceration is really the right answer to all of our social ills. And the answer is that it's not, that it's expensive, that it's inhumane, that it's wrong. And the Southern Center has taken that position for more than a generation. And I am so proud to have a small piece in that history. So I ask you tonight, because it's my job to ask you, and because I feel so deeply and so strongly from my core, from my experience, from being in this state for as long as I have, to be as generous as you can be, whether it's tonight or at some other time when you're making contributions in this community. And I just want to say thank you to Sarah, thank you to the staff, thank you to all of you. It gives me incredible hope, incredible inspiration to see all of you here tonight and to know that the Southern Center, although in many ways its mission may be to put itself out of business and to choose another battle and to not fight the death penalty anymore, although as many of you know, last week we put the 5th Georgian to death, a record tied with last year since 1987, but to put itself out of business so that we can fight for an even greater vision about what our state and our neighboring states could be if we believed in and represented the dignity of all. So thank you all, thank you Southern Center, and please be as generous as you can be.
So, if you'd like to help, on your tables there are envelopes. All you have to do is pick up one, fill it out, put your check in, or you can always just, go on into it. The envelopes are not there for decoration. They're for your use. All right? I believe in you. Now, as I leave you tonight, I'm going to leave you with this quote from the great abolitionist, who also was a journalist, Frederick Douglass. When justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe. A warning. What this center does is extremely important to all our well-being. Thank you again for being here tonight. Please continue to fellowship with each other as you enjoy the soulful sounds of Grammy-nominated artists Kermit Quinn and Jukebox Atlanta, Atlanta's premier